Okay, I figured I would share some findings before the weather changes. So let's get started. Yeah, we'll just go ahead and add this and go like this, and we're off. Okay, looks pretty good. All right, so I'm still trying to figure out the difference between the F and the G. Now, this is looking interesting here. PA, of course, I guess is Palestinian. LE is Lebanon, and SY is Syria. So now the G is making me wonder here. Is there? I can't tell the difference between. Well, there's a G1, G2, which I thought was Syria, at least the G1, and it looks like, but the G2 is a huge, a significant percentage of the Judaic population, the Jewish population. Now the F, which is supposed to be the beginning of a category, but it's actually a category of its own, which they can't seem to get it straight. In fact, there's several of them, which I've shown before. But if you look at the Syrian population, which is, used to be the Aramean population, the Arameans are supposed to be the Syrians, which I guess that makes sense. I guess that's okay. And they're F, at least one branch of F, because there's several branches of F too, for that matter. But since G is even if it's in the Jewish population, maybe it is the Assyrians. In case you don't know the difference, it's the Assyrians are descended from Asher. The Syrians or Arameans are descended from Aram. So the Aram is the progenitor of the Arameans, which, according to this here, if you're looking at the Syrian population, it appears to be significantly F and not G. So that was my original, understanding. Well, the original ones was that there was an F1 and F2. The Lydians fit in there somehow. Lydians have to fit in there somehow too, if they're still the remaining Lydians, which there probably would be. But PA, Palestinian, I guess that'll be Palestinian, would be largely Assyrian, which I guess makes sense, Of course, the Assyrians are in this area up here. The Assyrians were way up in this area of Anatolia and of course Babylon, and of course they went all over. That's the thing. So you'd have to, whatever it is, and G2 is all over. Anyways, it's all over. I mean, it's all over. G2 is all over Europe as well. So that would make sense for it to be Assyrian. Of course, I'm kind of thinking out loud, but that was my original thinking based on these pie charts here. it seems like the Arameans, Syrians, have the FY chromosome, because of course the other ones are irrelevant to Aram, because you have the J2, you have the other ones, whatever ones, I or whatever. And the E, the E's and the H, she can't tell the difference. I guess that's a pink. But anyways, in this diagram here. So just trying to figure that out. The G, I guess, is still Assyrian. It always was, but I was thinking that was split between G1 and G2, but I guess maybe I don't need to do that. Because if you look at the Syrian population, which is what the Arameans used to be, I mean, that's what the Arameans turned into. The Syrian population is largely F, significantly F, but it's also up in these areas as well, which makes sense as well, because the Arameans probably went the same way as everybody else running for the mountains. Okay, moving right along. Here's another example of the indigenous populations, and I guess it's comparing to the to Asia, as far as the CY chromosome, the Q, and other. Now we have some names here, which is good because we can know what it is. So these populations here have the CY chromosome in them. These here. Cheyenne has a little bit. Sioux has a little bit. The YU, remember the YU? The Quechuas and the Waoranis, they have the CY chromosome in their populations. Okay, but what's bothersome is this amount of other here. It would be good if they just showed the other, or if they could find out. I guess they're just counting out everything else and not even considering it, whatever it is, the other. But anyways, I just came upon this diagram and I figured I'd show it, and stuff like that. Okay, here's another one, which is another example of SYR, which is Syria and Lebanon. Okay, so what do we have here in Syria what do we have for the where's the F? F is a brown. Of course, these aren't always the same, right? I guess this population has quite a bit less brown. But like I was saying, notice how a lot of this F went up into these areas here. And this is the pass between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, otherwise known as Caucasus. So the F is significant in this area, which is, to be expected, considering that whenever anybody fled or was kicked out of here, they went up in this direction. So it's still, whether, depending on this sample here, it's not a whole lot of brown, but there is a lot of brown in this area, and it's the FY chromosome, which is a group to itself, besides being a category, which makes no sense at all. But that's another story. This is the G, I think. Haplogroup G first breeding. So this would be the Assyrians. If that, if this is the Assyrian, it makes sense because this is the area of Assyria, and everybody, when they ran to the mountains, would be up in this area here. So that's consistent. That would be Assyria and not Syria, which would be the Arameans. So it's kind of hard to figure it out. Again, the same thing with Assyria being the G, if that was the case. The Assyria from Asher, descended from Asher. Here was important to remember that the K is a category, but K is also a huge group, which includes S and M in Papua New Guinea. So these are all spread out in different areas. These populations are widely spread out. This S, which is basically a K, I don't know why they even have a separation. Probably because they didn't know where it fit in when they first started taking samples. But they knew that the S was significantly different from the M, which is Papua New Guinea. There's two sides of Papua New Guinea. There's the left side, or the west side, and the east side. Two totally separate lineages, but they're okay. It's okay anyway. Just as by way of a reminder, because K is a category of all these people. K element, L, P, Q, R, S, and T, but it's also a specific group, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Here's again G1. This would be G1 as opposed to G2, which I thought there was a difference between G1 and G2, but probably the lineage that became a part of the Jewish population became its own separate lineage. That's why it's G2 instead of G1. But you can see here, this is Assyria. It's basically, this is Mesopotamia right here. So, the percentages aren't that great, but the location is absolutely Assyria, as opposed to the Arameans. Well, of course, you can see how the Jewish population became, affected or influenced by the Assyrians by way of the GY chromosome in their population, which is called G2. At least some of their lineages are called G2 anyway. So you can see this area is absolutely Assyria. As far as that goes, you really can't say it's from any other place other than Assyria because it's right there. This would be the land of Shinar right there, which is also the ruling class, of course. Oops, I should do this. The ruling class, of course, would be Nimrod's descendants, which was the CY chromosome, until the day that Nimrod died. Oh, and here's right in Israel, there's a significant population as well, right there in Israel. So yeah, that would explain the G2 Assyrian Y chromosome in the Jewish population. I just figured that there'd be more Aramean, but apparently there's not a whole lot of Aramean in the Jewish population for whatever reason. They did keep separate and everything, but it's not completely absent. And Syria does have the F paternal Y chromosome. So And just in case that we're not sure of where the land of Shinar is, and Nimrod's Tower of Babel in Eridu, right here, or Ur of the Chaldees, where Abraham uh, grew up, where his father apparently made idols for Nimrod, and he got in trouble with Nimrod because he broke his father's idols with whatever, something like that. I don't know. But anyways, this is Shinar, of course, land of Shinar. Of course, this area right here was where the G Y chromosome was most prevalent. Okay, again we have the comparison here. We'll just look at this again, double check here. We have Syria, and if we're going to see what the F is, it's a light green. So we'll go to Syria, and it is a light green right there, as opposed to the dark green over here. So the light green, which would probably be Elam, or maybe that's a, let's see. Dark green is Elam, yeah. F plus G. Well, some of this stuff is old information and maybe not as accurate, but it does show something. Oh, this would be Turkey. Turkey's over here, but same difference, same thing. But notice the amounts up here, same way. The F is largely in that area, but that still seems to be the Arameans, the one of the Fs, because there's a couple of different Fs, and they're totally separate from each other as well. Okay, so we got the Uyghur population. Now, I don't know if I don't know who did this observed paternal lineages in the Uyghur population, but apparently someone revised it or made another one of the Uyghur population. Of course, R1A to be expected, O to be expected, Q to be expected, J, of course, considered, well, that's the surprise, should be a surprise. C to be expected, G and H. G and H is probably because of this right here. Anyways, that, of course, this would be the Judaic population. But there's another chart that gives a better example. Now, I may or may not have shown this before. This is the descendants of Nimrod, C1 in Europe. So C1, the descendants of Nimrod, became part of the early Europeans, and of course that's why they were darker, because of the CY chromosome, or because of descendants of Nimrod, and possibly some Egyptians too as well, or something. But so these are labeled differently now. They'd be C1, C2, C3, or I don't know, they change. I can't even keep track of which is which, but that's more or less it. I believe this is Sephardic Jewish populations, of course, with a J2, M172, which is huge. descendants of Judah, probably David. You know. Okay. Hopefully, I'll get into some of my new or my more recent findings here, and just see. We got some people here. Maybe I should respond. George Bond, good morning. That was 4:30. Jamie, are these mtDNA or Y chromosome haplogroup? Mostly Y chromosome for the time being. I'm trying to straighten out the Asian Y chromosome. Hello, Kevin Colvin. Hello. So I got that's about it, I guess. So now I was trying to find more information on the Neanderthals, and the hot spot is the redder spots, and the colder spots are the bluer spots and or gray. So I guess, well, they don't have any samples in Africa, but you can see how it's colder in the Middle East, in the Semitic areas, and of course these areas are influenced by Semitic areas too. But as you move east, and even in the Americas, which are, which is the QY chromosome, which is Eurasian. The QY chromosome of Native Americans is Eurasian, and so it's clear that the Eurasians are more related to Neanderthals. Of course, the real hotspots, for some reason, is Papua New Guinea, which is Eurasian as well, with the KY chromosome, or the M and the SY chromosome, and the K. So they would be significantly Neanderthal as well. As opposed to the Denisovan, same hotspots, but the Denisovan is only slightly positive in the area of China, and of course the same area of Papua New Guinea, but which doesn't show it as well. But this is just, I figured I'd just go ahead and show this because you can see that the Semitic area is cold for Neanderthal DNA. Okay, that's that. Okay, here's a family tree DNA Turks project. Now I don't know what location this is. This is a Uyghur Turks, but there's the G, which is Assyria, which should be expected. J1, J2, N, Q, R, and T. Okay. Of course, the L is interesting because that would be Thracians. From the L all the way around here, this is Japhethite, all the way to the T, which is the Javan Sea people, which is Japhethite. Then there's the Hamitic C and the E1B, which is Hamitic, and then starts the Semitic population. Of course, all the areas near and around the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, they're all Judaic because of the dispersion, because that's where they were kicked out. That's where they went to. This is interesting because It's the Altai people, which is where the Denisova cave is, except I guess today's population is largely Ashkenaz R1A. Significant amount of Q, which is Madai, which is to be expected because Madai is not too far away, the heir of the Medes. The N is to be expected because that's Meshach. O is Magog. C is Nimrod. Got a couple different C's from Nimrod, C2s, I guess, C2. Then D, which is the Andamanese Y chromosome, which is also the Tibetan Y chromosome, which is also possibly the Sinaites from Canaan. Either Canaan, Put, or Mitzrayim, probably Canaan. So the descendants of Canaan, descendant of Nimrod, Magog, Meshach, Madai. But a huge representation of the Ashkenaz haplogroup today. Okay. Here's another one, Kazakhstan, which is a huge representation of Nimrod, R1A Ashkenaz, G1, which would be Assyria, the Assyrian population not associated with the Jewish people, and Meshach, and then they have a little bit of J2, which is Kazakhstan, okay. R1B, this is according to percentages, would be Rippath and Magog. G2, which would be the lineage from the Jewish population. J1, which is either Arabic or Israelite. And Madai, Canaan, Mitzrayim. R2 would be Togarma. Probably Togarma, R2. So the L is Thracian and the T is Greek. I mean Javan Greek. Both Thrace and Javan are Greek. Okay, this is a Balkan Turk. This is the area just across from Italy, which is largely, there's one area that has a large percentage of the E1B, plus there's the I1, the I2, J2, you know. Okay. Now here, is this my new one? Yeah, this is my new diagram. So this is the one where they claim, see this arrow here? This is how they root the tree right here. So in other words, the lineage that came from the ancestor of the Neanderthals and the ancestor of the Denisovans, they have that root connected right here between the A and the B. So if that was the case, then that would mean the A and the B should have more Neanderthal DNA, right? Well, it's not the case. They have less, which is my point. Another point I made before, I don't want to spend too much time on here, but C has in common, well, according to this map, C was by itself having in common being this marker here, this identifier. C has this identifier apparently. I guess before, D and E didn't have it, but I guess they do now. I don't know. Or maybe it's another identifier. I got to check if it's the same identifier. But anyways, now apparently C and D and E have this identifier in common with the rest of the world, whereas A and B do not. But I know C is the descendant of Nimrod, which is A. I mean, yeah, Nimrod, the son of Cush, which is A. Because these others are clearly Mitzrayim, these M81s, M81, M78, M123, which I used to think was Canaan, and all these E3s are probably Mitzrayim, all these E3s. If not, then we have to figure something else out. But for the time being, we'll go with E1 is Put, E2 is Canaan, because we need a lot more information. E3 is Mitzrayim, which is basically most of the population with the exception of A and B, which is also a large population in Africa. So for the time being, that's the way it's working. A is Cush, and B is Cush, and C is Cush. But A and B don't have this identifying marker, apparently, in common with the rest of the world. Okay, this D and E have their own identifying marker as being who they are, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. D, I believe, would be connected to Canaan, of course, with its own identifier. Of course, the rest of Canaan developed their own identifier, while Sinim developed his own identifier, and they're both identified with as being a descendant of Ham, with the odd ones out being A and B, probably. So then we have the identifier of F, G, H, I, and J. Depending on where you put the root of the tree, people are going to have, depending on who was born first, Ham, Shem, or Japheth. Ham was probably born first, and Shem and Japheth were born later with this identifier of their own. That's probably what happened. So then we have F, G, H, I, and J. And then K would develop its own identifier, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T, as being its own family tree. Okay, I know it's very, very confusing. It's but the thing that shows me the things probably C, the descendants of Nimrod, is the most significant haplogroup for understanding who's who. I mean, besides the fact that J is from Abraham, because that's kind of obvious. J is from Abraham. H is from Elam. That's kind of obvious. G, see the G1, G2. G is from Assyria. That's pretty obvious. And then you got the F1. You got a whole bunch of F1, F2, F3s, separate lineages as well. So we got to figure out who they are, because they're apparently totally different from each other. But that's about it for here right now. There's just a little bit additional information there with a D. The D and the E have the same identifier that C has, which the rest of the world has, which wasn't in the other chart. But anyway. Okay, we've seen this this chart before probably. Um, see Neanderthal. Of course, this is not really Neanderthal to be expected. America, so Neanderthal. That's Q. That's Eurasia. Eurasia R to be expected because these are Neanderthals, by the way, probably. Denisovan caves over here. Denisovan over here. So this Denisovan cave is in the area, believe it or not, where the CY chromosome is and was, and the DY chromosome was in the area as well. The DY chromosome of Sinim, China, that went all the way to Japan. It's a little bit high, but it's a little bit out of place for this area anyway, so it's not too much of a big deal. Okay. This one, I don't even know what this is, not marked. We've seen this one before, Iranian. We've seen this one before, 48% J in the Jewish population. A kind of a dead ringer. Of course, T, we know the Phoenicians had the TY chromosome of Javan, and it's also around that area of Anatolia as well. So that would be, but the reason why the Jewish population has the T is because of the Phoenicians who had a large percentage of T in their population. Okay, it's about the same thing there. And the Q, I mean, Sephardic Jews is basically the same thing, you know. There's the T because the Sephardic Jews are in the Mediterranean, where the sea people are, Phoenician sea people are. But you know, why not the G or the Q? Why couldn't that be the Jewish people instead of the T? Look at the Q is 5% too. So why couldn't the Q be the, well, because it's Japhethite. That's why. It's the same lineage as all the nations to the north, where the nations dispersed to all throughout history. Okay, now here's supposed to be of the Arameans from family tree DNA. Okay, so what did we say the Arameans are? Arameans are the Syrians today, and the Syrians have an FY chromosome, so I'm not seeing an F here. Unless I'm not seeing the right place. QLJ2IH is Elam, Syria, others. I can't tell us what the others is. Now, the Arameans is the area of the Phoenicians as well. So there is a large signature of the Javan Sea people there. Now, these people identify as Aramean, but they have a significant Judaic population. They have more of a Judaic population than just about anything else. except for Ripfath, R1B, Mediterranean. J1, Arabic or Israelite. I, they got a little bit. G from Assyria to be expected. Not a whole lot to identify them as Arameans, except for the fact that they're probably, significantly Judaic as well. So 0.25% J2 Judaic Y chromosome. And of course, Arameans are Semitic as well. Now here says archaic ancestry, but it's supposed to be, Neanderthal. But you can see the cold spot here. Yeah, this can't be very much Denisovan, because Denisovan are considerably Hamitic. But look at the cold spot here. This is supposed to be Neanderthal DNA. Unless it's a D. Is that D? I don't think it's D. But anyways, I think it's chart D. But anyways, it's supposed to have been Neanderthal DNA. And of course, the Semitic populations were influenced by the Eurasian populations, which are warmer for Neanderthal DNA. Okay. But how can you say this is the area of A right here? This area here of Africa, A and B is right here. How can you say that the Neanderthals connect to the A and the B? It doesn't make sense. Okay, it's Balkan Turks again. We got that. Now here's a place high above the Caspian Sea, and there's still a large Judaic population when they went through. They passed through, went above the Black Sea, and also went up into this area here. J2, I as well. Of course, I is part of the same family tree. G is another, because I is hugely associated with the areas of Dan. So it can't really be the Assyrians. We saw how the G was right in the area of the Assyrian population. So I is still pretty much Dan for sure, because of Sardinia, because of the Danube area, because of the area up towards Denmark and places. Okay, of course now there's a huge Meshek population. That's Meshek, because Meshek went north, and O, where's O? O, there's O. Little bit of percentage of O, because they're still not in the area where Magog migrated to, but they probably migrated through this area here and then went south. Oops, here I am not showing it again. Okay. So this is high above the Caspian Sea, and you can see how high it is, because there's a huge population of Meshek and not so much Magog, but of course R1A. Where's R1A? R1A, Ashkenaz. R1B, Ripfath, not so much, because Ripfath is in the Mediterranean, so there's not a whole lot of R1b high above the Caspian Sea. But we got the C, which is Nimrod's descendants. Because the C and the G are in this area as well. The C and the G have a large presence in this area. And the C and the G are associated with each other because C is the ruler of the Assyrians and G is the Assyrians. So they're associated with each other quite a lot. Okay. And the G that's associated with Israel would be the G2. Okay, is this another area? I'm not sure where this area is, but it's quite a bit the same. A large population of N, which is Meshech. We have Thrace, quite a bit of Thracians there, and the Judaic population, which was dispersed and went in the areas of the Caspian Sea and all around there, around those areas. Okay, we got a little bit I2, J1, and some T. No, this is just straight Turkish DNA, I think. Turkish, or it's Turkish. Well, it's a tribe of Turkish DNA, which is where the Judaic people had to be kicked out to, had to go to all those areas. Now here's Mongolian. This is one is interesting. Of course, Mongolian being largely the descendants of Nimrod, the CY chromosome, which went all the way to America. And of course, being in China, there's a Magog population as well, Meshech, and Tubal, considerable amount of K Tubal, which went all the way, of course, to Australia and Papua New Guinea, and went all the way to Italy as well. Okay, we got a little bit of D there from Sinim, more O, and Q. Of course, this Q is what goes into America as well. Now here's the Uyghurs. This is another sampling of the Uyghur population, which is striking to me that the largest percentage of the Uyghur population is J2, which is strictly Judaic. The other surprise is Tubal, 18% descendants of Tubal as well, which is to be expected because that's it is the Silk Road, the Silk Road where people went to China, as well as Elam. Elam is represented here as well. Elam, Magog. Then we have Nimrod and more Magog, Madai, Sinim, Meshech, and R2 is Togarma. So a little bit of Togarma, as well as Ashkenaz. Uh-oh. Well, my battery's running low. Hopefully I can finish out here. Otherwise I'll have to, I probably can't plug it in. Anyways, I have an old computer. Probably I have to keep it plugged in. Otherwise it just goes dead. Here's another one that's interesting to me because it's a huge population of the descendants of Nimrod. I don't even know who they are. Bioli. 85% direct descendants of Nimrod. That would be very interesting. Of the Y chromosome. That would be, I have to look that up. Bioli. That'd be interesting. And then small percentages of J2, N, O, R1B, R1A. That's about it. So that'd be interesting. This is a new thing here. 85% Y chromosome descended from Nimrod, M217. Have to check that out. Okay, here's Assyrian, which is hard to tell, but it's the G. The GY chromosome is the Assyrian Y chromosome. And of course, everybody else moved into Assyria, including, there we go, the Javan Sea peoples. Huge population of the Javan Sea people in Assyria. Okay, which would be the Assyrian Y chromosome. That would be Phoenician, by the way. Phoenician. Because it's Japhethite. It can't be Judaic. And that's about it. So anyways, so much for this presentation, because my battery just went bye-bye. So I better sign out. Hello, David, brother. I2 P215M223. Okay. I'm not sure, but I think he's called me brother because I'm an I1 and he's an I2. So David is, or David is my brother. So good afternoon, Christian Carpenter. And keep cool. I have to check back. I get a terrible buffering problem this time of day. Yeah. All right. God bless everybody. I have to go because my battery's running out. So God bless everybody. Take care.